Hello, and welcome to another installment of our show, The Docket. As many of you know, and for those of you who don't, The Docket deals with legal issues and entities that affect you and our community. We try to present these things in both an understandable and enjoyable way, so thanks for joining us, and certainly we welcome any feedback or suggestions you might have. We'll be right back with today's special guest. Today's guest is Justin Underwood. Justin is a named partner in the firm Wyatt and Underwood. I know that this dates me, but I've known Justin as far back as his being in junior high school. And now he's one of the premier and preeminent criminal attorneys in El Paso. His name might be familiar to some of you, as he's recently been involved in some high-profile matters affecting our community. Among other things today, we're going to discuss how you should act and what you should say or not say if you're stopped by or have an interaction with the police. Understand this is in no way an anti-police discussion, but rather just an explanation of your rights. So, Justin, let me welcome you and say thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
And let's do a little bit of background. How long have you been an attorney here?
I've been licensed since 2001, which went by in a flash.
No kidding.
I worked for the district attorney's office straight out of law school under Mr. Jaime Esparza for 3 years. And in 2004, I formed what is now known as Wyatt Underwood Trial Lawyers with Mr. Derek Wyatt, my partner. And
you pretty much, not saying you're totally limited to it, but you pretty much specialize in criminal law. Is that right?
We do, yes, sir.
So, all of us do have interactions with the police from time to time, and it's not necessarily pleasant.
Correct.
So let me ask you, you and I talked before we came on camera, and I asked you for a couple of topics that we could discuss, and it was really the most common types of interactions you would have with a policeman or a policewoman.
Sure.
I think the first one you mentioned to me was most likely it's going to be a speeding infraction. Is that right?
Correct. Or some type of traffic violation where you are pulled over by the police. You look in your rearview mirror and you see those lights and you get butterflies and you immediately think, what did I do? Or if you're driving 100 miles an hour, you already know what you did. So yes, one of the probably the most common interaction that we have with our law enforcement is some type of traffic infraction, which leads to them pulling you over and detaining you on the side of the road. Okay,
so when they do pull you over, from your perspective as an attorney, because it is a criminal offense, right?
Sure, absolutely.
You know what? Let's explain this too before we go further with this. But a traffic violation is generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, a misdemeanor offense?
It's actually a Class C misdemeanor,
okay.
Correct. So
explain what those are.
Sure. So a Class A misdemeanor, you can get up to a year in the county jail and a fine of up to $4,000. A Class B misdemeanor, you can be fined up to $2,000 and spend up to 180 days in the county jail. A Class C citation is what we know as a traffic ticket.
Okay.
Or some sort of citation for disorderly conduct, public intoxication, not having your insurance, stuff like that. Those are Class C citations and are punishable up to a fine up to $500.
No jail time.
You can on Class C's. Obviously, if you don't take care of it, they can jail you, and the going rate for every day in jail varies. However many dollars per day you get is going to depend on the current economic status at the county jail.
Really?
Correct.
All right, so let's stick with a speeding ticket.
Sure.
So how should you act when you were stopped by a policeman for speeding?
The best piece of advice that I can give everybody is vanilla ice cream, right? You want to be as plain and vanilla with the officer as you possibly can. You do not want to create any situation where the officer is going to remember you.
Okay.
Because, and the reason I tell you this and the reason I say this is because a lot of times when we get into, we also have a department in our firm that handles traffic citations. Traffic citations get set for court, and if officers don't remember you, or they don't remember the stop or the incident from their own personal knowledge, their personal recollection, those tickets routinely get dismissed. So the first thing you want to remember is vanilla ice cream.
Okay.
Right? That's easy to remember. Be vanilla. Yes, sir. No, sir.
Don't cause a scene.
Don't cause a scene. The people who are going to invoke the immediate response from law enforcement that we've all seen that we all don't want are the people who, well, I pay your salary and, you know, I'm a citizen and I know my rights. They hear that 100 times a week, right? For our purposes, what I want our clients and our friends to do is be courteous, be calm, be kind. Don't give them any reason to remember you. If you do those things, chances are you're going to set us up for success later on. Also, the key thing to remember nowadays is that you're being recorded. Not only do most of the units in El Paso, Texas have dash-mounted cameras, but a large percentage of our officers now wear body cameras. So as they walk up to the vehicle, not only is your vehicle being recorded and you're being recorded from behind, they're also recording you on their body camera that they've got usually on one side of their chest. What do we do next, right? So it depends on if they're just stopping you for a traffic citation, be courteous, provide your driver's license. Sometimes they'll ask you for insurance. Sometimes they will not, because now they can run the plate in Texas. They do have a system now where they can run the plate and tell if the registration is current, if you have current insurance on the vehicle. Typically,
even if you don't have your insurance card with you.
Even if you don't have your insurance card with you, they can verify with the plate now.
And then they wouldn't get a ticket for not having your insurance.
You are supposed to provide proof of financial responsibility. That's the legal term for not having your insurance card with you, because in case you get into an accident or something like that, you're required to provide proof. So you still need to keep it in your vehicle. But if you have insurance on the vehicle, they can typically tell from running the plate.
And it seems to me that in the past, there were more police kind of stationed on the side of the road or the side of the highway. So if you were speeding, there was a better chance of you being picked up. It seems to me there's less of that going on now.
Well, and I also think apps like Waze, Facebook pages that are dedicated to where police are running radar. I think that does impact how law enforcement responds. I will tell you this: I still do see speed traps. I will tell you a very famous one here in El Paso is right around the corner at UTEP. There is, I would tell you, probably 2-3 times a month, they're running a speed trap there. Loop 375 on the far east, they still run speed traps there, so I would just tell you to be careful. But the app Waze, W-A-Z-E,
right.
And I'm not a paid spokesperson for them, but I will tell you that app does work very well, because the users are allowed to, on your navigation screen, for those of you who use it, you can drop a pin and alert other drivers that, hey, I just drove past a police officer.
Oh, I didn't know that, but I'm not very technologically adept.
You should get updated. It's very helpful.
But I wrote it down. Now I remember the question I was going to ask you. So there's always this issue about after the policeman stops you, and again, you're plain vanilla and you try and stay low key, they're going to hand you the ticket to sign.
Correct. A lot of people, we talked about this before we came on here, a lot of people are under the assumption that you shouldn't sign the ticket. If you don't sign the ticket, they have the ability and the authority to arrest you for whatever they're writing you a citation for. By you signing the ticket, you are not admitting guilt at all. We fight those tickets every day. You are not admitting.
You're saying you'll show up in court when you're notified,
correct.
Right?
Really what you're signing is saying, okay, I understand you're releasing me. It's my responsibility to contact the municipal court or the JP court or whatever the court is that's usually on the ticket to set up an arrangement so that I can have a court date. If you don't sign the ticket, they can arrest you, and most of the time they will. So please just sign the ticket. Be thankful, be courteous, plain vanilla. Don't talk to them about your son's football game or your kids' play at school. Don't give them things to remember you by. The less they remember, the better off you are.
And then they just go and call you.
Correct.
Say, help me out.
Absolutely.
I remember it once happened to me. I went through a stop sign, and I got stopped, and rightly so. But then the policeman started talking to me about the dogs I had in the back of the car,
Sure.
and we had this wonderful discussion. I thought, well, he's not going to give me a ticket. Then I got the ticket.
And you got the ticket.
Do
Correct.
they have to arrest you if you don't sign the ticket? Are they required to do that?
They're not required to, but almost always they will, because there's no real other way for them to keep track of the citation as it goes through the system on the back end.
Really? Why would that be? They've given you the ticket.
Sure, but what happens is if they don't, it's about notice, right? We lawyers love notice.
Right.
If you don't have them sign the citation, you haven't given them
Oh,
notice.
you can claim that you never
Correct.
received.
You can claim, well, I didn't get notice of a ticket.
Yeah.
My signature's not on that. So that's kind of,
yeah.
just sign the ticket and bring it to either us or another traffic
Sure.
person.
Anybody
in
who
town.
does the traffic
Absolutely.
tickets. What happens though if you don't sign it and you get arrested for speeding?
Sure. Or seatbelt or.
What's the process if you are arrested?
So they will take you and book you, and you have to post a bond on the ticket
you
amount.
have
So
to
whatever the amount of the ticket, you have to pay that to get out of jail.
And is that whole thing? They'll give you a chance, one call, and you can get somebody to come down and do it for you?
I'd like my phone call, please. Yeah. Yes. Typically you can call a family member to come to the jail and post, because traffic tickets, $200-$300 max, right? They come down and they post that amount, and then you can get out, which seems like a whole lot of hassle when you could just sign
the ticket.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, luckily, my only interaction in that sphere is getting tickets, and I always sign.
Sure.
And then drive up the hill being very aggravated.
Absolutely. But it's also nice that you have me on your speed dial. So.
No kidding. Okay, so then you had given me another example where, and I thought this was very interesting about what might happen with an interaction with the policeman. You said when the police are responding to a call for some reason that has nothing to do with you, but you happen to be there.
Correct.
So give us some information about that.
Well, the first thing I want to say is if the police are ever called to a scene because of you, do not talk to the police. If they're there, I know that they will tell you, hey, we're here to help. But if you are the one being accused, they're not there to help you.
Right.
They're there to gather evidence against you, including your own statements. So with the caveat of if the police have been called to a scene because of an incident where you're the accused, absolutely keep your mouth shut and don't talk to the police.
And so in that case, let them arrest you if that's what they're going to do.
Certainly.
And then we're back to the one phone call you or their other criminal lawyer and say, help me out here.
Correct. And the reason that we tell everybody this, it's not because, sometimes you don't want to make any comments about it at all because you may incriminate yourself. But what people fail to realize is if you try to explain yourself, people are assuming that when the police are involved, you're operating within the arena of normal everyday life, when you're really not anymore. As someone, if you accuse your children of breaking your television, the kids are going to want to argue with you and tell you why it was their sibling. If they don't say anything, they're going to hold that against you. That's not how a courtroom works, right? Typically, if someone accuses you of something, you want to defend yourself, right? That's human nature. What happens in criminal law is if you tell the police officer, well, A, B, and C happened, but later on down the road, you remember, oh, but D, E, and F also happened. It looks like you weren't truthful at the time when you told them A, B, and C happened, when in reality, you could have just been caught up in the moment and forgotten to mention that D, E, and F happened.
Right.
So it's better just not to mention anything.
So, but if that's interesting, because if they come out and they want to question you, what do you say? No comment, or I want to talk to my lawyer?
Absolutely. In fact, if you invoke your right to counsel, they can't speak to you anymore.
But can they then take you to jail?
Sure.
Okay. But that's a better solution, because then they can call you or whoever they want to depend on, and you can advise them how to stay out of as much trouble as possible.
Right. And I'll tell you, and people hate that I say this, but I'm less interested in your arrest than I am your conviction. What happens in court is my primary concern as your attorney, right? What happens at the arrest sets up, kind of sets the stage for us to play our chess game. But if you're at a scene and it's an assault or a bar fight or something, and it's clear that it was self-defense, and you've got 3 people who are backing you up, you don't need to admit to the police that, yes, I did hit this person, because now you've admitted to doing it, even if it's in self-defense.
Right.
But you have 3 other witnesses who can do that. So I would rather you just be quiet and get arrested versus run your mouth, make admissions, and still get arrested.
So talk about that for a minute. How does an arrest affect you you go to apply for a job, you go to apply for a government job, and I mean, a conviction obviously affects you, but just an arrest, what happens in that situation?
That's a good question. This is one of the questions that I answer probably the most in any given month of the year. We have 2 kinds of records, right? When someone says, oh, your criminal record, it's really not inclusive of everything that we're able to see when someone runs your background. There is something called an arrest record, right? You get arrested for driving while intoxicated, right? But while the case is pending, there's no disposition on the case. So you have an arrest record, but there's no disposition record, which would be a dismissal or a conviction or probation or what have you. So when you apply for a job, if it depends on what they ask. And I get this from my father, who was vice president of human resources for many years.
He would never hire me for a job.
Absolutely.
Or you.
He knows better. But the question that it asks, if it asks you, have you ever been arrested? Put yes. Yes, comma, but the charge was dismissed.
Okay.
Now, if you were convicted, obviously you had been arrested. You need to put, I would tell people this all the time. More damage is done on an application by lying about your criminal history than just admitting it.
Right.
More people have a criminal history than you realize. But if you lie about it on a job application, the entity that's looking, or the company or the government that is looking to hire you, is going to say, well, if he'll lie on this.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
If you're honest and you disclose it, especially if it's a misdemeanor, I would say 9 times out of 10, the employer, if you're qualified to do the job, will probably overlook it. Obviously, felonies are completely different.
Right.
That can disqualify you from so many things in life.
And that's a whole different program. We'll get to felonies at some time.
Yeah, totally different program.
So what about an expunction?
Sure, great question. So an expunction, what happens is, if the case gets dismissed, right, or you go to a jury trial and a jury finds you not guilty, you are entitled to something called an expunction. An expunction, you have to wait for the statute of limitations to run. So in Texas, on a misdemeanor, that's 2 years. You have to wait from 2 years from the date that it happened. Not the date that it was disposed of, but the date of occurrence of the incident. So you get arrested in 2020, October 18th, 2020, right? You have to wait till October 18th, 2022 to file your petition for expunction. What an expunction does is it goes in there and it literally takes an eraser and it erases everything, the arrest that we talked about, it erases all that information, and any disposition that came out of it, it erases all of that too. An expunction absolutely goes in and erases the record.
But you have to be found not guilty?
Expunctions are very limited. You have to either have your case dismissed, and dismissed in a way that you did not complete a deferred adjudication or something like that. So if you took a class for dismissal, or the DA's office looked at it and said, well, we're not going to prosecute this case isn't great, we dismissed it. Or what the district attorney's office does now, they offer something called pretrial diversion, which is basically a first offender program. You have to be qualified for it. And so if you get qualified for it, you will be able to take a class, get your case dismissed and expunged. The only exception there is that the DA's office keeps an internal record of the pretrial diversion so that they don't give it to you again in the future. But for employment purposes, if you get pretrial diversion and an expunction, it is completely wiped from
So
your
you've
record.
never been arrested?
Correct. And under Texas law, if an expunction has been granted, you have the right to even tell people, or you have the right to deny that you were ever arrested in the first place.
So this may be a stupid question, but I do no criminal work. Can a conviction ever be expunged?
No.
So that's on your record forever?
Correct. The only way to get a conviction off your record is if you could get the governor to pardon you.
Okay.
Typically that requires a very large
donation.
Campaign contribution. Yes. Yes.
I think also what you're saying, it's very important for people out there who are listening to, you're making a very good point. I'm a lawyer, but I didn't know anything of what you're talking about.
Sure.
It is very important to find an attorney who practices in the area of law you're concerned about.
I would agree with that 1,000%.
I mean, nobody wants to come to me for criminal law. Nobody probably wants to go to you for tax information.
Right.
So
I pay my taxes. That's my information.
Right. And you have somebody advising you about it.
Correct. Absolutely.
So it's just very important to do that. And then you would also mention, oh, well, wait, I want to go back for a minute. What happens if you just happen to be on the scene when the cops, I apologize, when the police are called?
That's a good question. It depends on your level of involvement in what they're there for. If you're a witness to the event, they may want to speak to you about being a witness. They take witness statements all the time. I will tell you.
And should you, on the scene, if they want a witness statement, should you agree?
If I don't, unless there's a clear reason that you should not, unless it's your wife, or your spouse, I don't see any reason why you should not give a witness statement to them at the scene.
Okay, and so
unless you're involved in it somehow, some way, or you have some sort of conflict, those would be the only reasons that I would tell you to not give a statement.
And if you want to say, you know what, I'm not talking to you.
Correct.
Then they can't arrest you because you're just a witness. You don't want to talk.
Correct.
Okay. Now, the next thing you talked to me about, and I found this a little bit surprising because it's never happened to me, if the police call you on the phone, what's the deal there?
So a lot of times what will happen is this happens all the time. People will get a phone call from a detective who wants to talk to you. Someone's made a complaint against you. So if you get a call from a detective on the phone because someone has accused you of something, your flag should go up immediately, and you should say, with all due respect, detective, let me get your name and phone number. I will have my attorney contact you. Under no circumstances should you ever, ever, ever go down and say, yes, detective, I know what so-and-so said about me. Let me come down and explain it to you. Never do that. Ever, ever, ever do that. Because what's going to happen is the detective's going to get you to go down there. Well, we just want to hear your side of the story.
Right.
Well, your side of the story almost always entails you incriminating yourself at some level.
Sure.
And all they need to do for probable cause to get an arrest warrant is have just a tiny, that word scintilla of evidence that we learned in law school many, many years ago. They just need a very small, scintilla means a very, very small amount of evidence, which could include an admission by you.
And to get you involved in that whole thing.
Correct. And then now, he admitted it. We've got a confession.
Right.
That's where you don't want to be. Never, ever speak to the police if you are the accused without an attorney.
How common is it for them just to call you up?
Very common, because a lot of times what will happen, they're called non-arrest cases. And what that means is there are two ways the police can arrest you. Something happens, they go to the scene, they arrest the person right there. But let's say, you realize something got stolen from you 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So what do? You go make a police report. That police report that's generated, if it's found to be credible or if it's found that there's criminal activity, they assign it to a detective. So what happens is the detective starts, okay, well, the person made a complaint and they think you did it. So the first call the detective's going to make is you. Did you do it?
Yeah. I never realized
so
that
yes,
they would pick up the phone and call.
We get clients who just get phone calls out of the blue all the time from non-arrest cases that were just complaints that were filed against them by we get them from their neighbors, their coworkers, people they're dating, just all kinds of stuff.
And I want to jump back for a minute when I said you primarily specialize in criminal law, and I think for you and Derek Wyatt, that's true. Don't you have someone else at your firm?
We do. We have a third partner. Her name's Elena Grassheim, and she is a family lawyer. Okay. She also does works on injury cases for us as well.
Okay. I just didn't want to leave her out.
Yeah, absolutely. She's really the boss, so
I'm
sure. We probably should not leave Elena out.
As Magda is in my office.
Absolutely.
But so now go back to the specialization, where I said if you have a criminal case, you call a criminal lawyer.
Sure.
how is that broken down within criminal law? So I know there are fellows out there who only do the traffic citations.
Correct.
Is there a big difference, and would you go to different lawyers for burglary versus robbery versus assault versus, or does it all fall under the umbrella?
I think it all falls under the umbrella. I do think that there are those of us who are better at certain types of cases,
right?
Especially the cases involving children. Or there are a few guys in town who they've just tried more cases. They've got more experience at it. Obviously, driving while intoxicated cases, I would say that myself and probably two other guys that I know have more experience and more, I don't want to say success, but we've been way more effective at, especially with the blood draw,
right.
How they draw blood these days. If your attorney does not know how to effectively attack blood
Challenge
draws.
that, yeah.
Absolutely. You have to think about this for a minute. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Well, video is worth 1,000,000 words. So if you get a client and you look at the video, or you're adamant that you weren't intoxicated, and we look at the video and you don't look intoxicated, right? But the state lab comes back and says, well, you're double the legal limit.
All right.
Something's wrong there. Okay. The labs do screw this stuff up, but does your lawyer have the
knowledge to attack it?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that just someone who does criminal law won't know how to cross-examine, because obviously we all know. But do they have the technical expertise to explain to you how they test the blood? They don't actually even test the blood. They test the headspace above the blood in the vial. That starts there.
And you lost me already.
Correct.
But they have specific courses for this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, one of our older commercials, I told everyone I've taken this mastering scientific evidence for blood testing 3 times. Right. I did that on the commercial, and a lot of my colleagues said, "Well, you couldn't pass it the first time."
Right.
I took it 3 times because it is intensive scientific stuff. I'm a lawyer. We're lawyers.
Yeah.
Do you remember studying scientific stuff?
No, absolutely.
None. But when you're learning about blood testing procedures and you're coming into it, sometimes it takes once or twice before you really start. By the 3rd time that I took that course, I could have taught probably most of it. And that's why when I'm able to cross-examine the supervisors who test the blood, I'm not saying I know more than they do, but if they say something that's wrong or something that's inaccurate, I know when to call that out.
Yeah, and I want to make sure everybody who's listening knows, if you're stopped by a policeman, we're not talking anti-policeman. We're talking about exercising your rights.
Correct.
And you should have somebody who knows what your rights are and how to do that.
Correct.
I want to thank you. We're running out of time.
Thank you for having me.
We definitely can do another program.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you about the death penalty. I want to talk to you about felonies.
Sure.
People, one of the pillars of the justice system is everybody's entitled to representation. And you're not guilty until you're convicted, innocent
Correct.
until proven guilty. So we have a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I think it was terrific.